Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I'm looking forward to sharing another amazing industry expert with you today. And I am really excited today with who I have with me because I just love him. I love everything about him. And he is so smart, so generous, and really knows how to utilize networking, how to utilize social media, how to make money at it all, and to be able to do it in a way that you absolutely think, oh my gosh, this guy's got it going on. He's also been a cover of our Marketing, Media, and Money magazine. And not only that, he holds the record of the most downloaded copies of the magazine. So you're going to want to make sure you go check out his issue too. But let me tell you a little bit about him. So Phil Gerbyshak is a sales speaker, sales expert, sales trainer, sales coach. He trains teams on the power of connection and how to best leverage the reach of social media, combined with the deeply personal work of nurturing one-to-one relationships to grow profitable long-term clients, transforming business, and boosting revenue. People matter and they don't scale. Thank you so much, Phil, for being here with me today and sharing your zone of genius.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Patty, for all your good words. I so appreciate you.
So let's dive right in and talk about social media really quick. So I know that, social media has only been around for however long it's been around, but you are doing it really, really well. And there are only so many people, in my opinion, that really get it right. And by that, I mean, get it right and they know how to social sell. They get it right in knowing how to really nurture relationships and really know what I want to say, social etiquette. Right? And you just nail it in every single one of those. So kind of tell us a little bit about that journey, and were you already kind of doing that before you were doing it socially and it just kind of transferred over, or kind of tell us a little bit about that in your background?
Sure. So first, I want to share, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn, but I didn't always love to share. And I think that's important. Like, I would read a ton of books. I've always read a ton of books back before there were podcasts, back before there were TED Talks. I read a lot of books and I never shared them. I thought, my job is to get smart. And my buddy Kirk Wiesler, I heard him speak. I did a program for an association that I was part of. And he said, hey, man, it's great that you're picking up so much information, but you really need to drop off some value. I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought about that. I'm like, So I started doing presentations. That's one of the reasons why I'm a speaker, why I'm a trainer now, because, hey, you got to give back. Okay, so I got that. Well, in 2004, 2005, I started using LinkedIn. And it just started making sense that I would share information. I mean, share information, share thoughts, share links, share whatever content we had. And at the time, you could share a link, but there was no preview, there was no thumbnail or anything. It was literally, you had to get people going to get them going there. And one of the keys, and this is something that I realized early on, is that it's not about how smart I am, it's about how smart my network is and how smart the people around me are. So I really realized that when I share stuff, I should give people credit for sharing that. That sounds really obvious now, but that wasn't always obvious before. And now it's even more important because when I share your work and I tag you, your network knows now. Like, the network effect is really big. This is super important. I think folks miss this, or they go spammy and they take 50 people in every post and they hope that it's just going to blow up. I don't think I always did that, Patty, but when I realized that it wasn't so much about how much I could put in my head, but how much I could share, I think my life really, really changed. And I have Kirk to thank for that.
That's awesome. It's really funny because I was just talking about that this week when I had a training, and somebody in my training was saying to me, oh, Patty, I love the way you do the Follow Friday things that you do. And when you shout me out as a local leader, and he said, I just really love the way you do it. And I said, well, that's really, really great, but would you like a tip? And he said, sure. I said, well, I think it's great that you like it, but it would probably help you a little more if you retweeted it, right? And shared it. And he's like, oh, is that what I'm supposed to do? It was really kind of funny. Like, he literally was like, I just didn't know. And I said, yeah, let me tell you what that does for you. It's not just that you're doing something for me, right? This is how it works for you. And it works across all social media platforms. And he literally looked super surprised. Like, he had no idea. And everybody else in the training came up to me after and said, wow, Patty, that was really a good tip. And I couldn't believe how many people didn't realize that if somebody shouts you out, that you should actually share it and then say something. It was like, cracked me up. I couldn't believe it.
Well, and it's interesting you couldn't believe it, because I got to tell you, that's one of the things most people don't get when I train. Most people don't understand that when I coach, right? They think, oh, I'm bragging. Well, here's the thing. It's not bragging if it's true. If you shout me out, Patty, I need to share that with my folks, because frankly, the proof coming from you is far more big than the proof coming from me. And folks need to remember that. Not only that, but it's just gracious. I mean, if you say something nice, I should say thank you. That's pretty obvious, right? In real conversation, because people don't translate that online. They think that that's not real conversation, right? And if you saw the video, folks, I like to use air quotes, right? Real conversation, because real conversation is everywhere. I mean, real conversation could be a handwritten letter from my grandmother. It could be a tweet on Twitter, could be a post on LinkedIn, could be a video. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, whatever that conversation is, you need to be present and you need to be gracious about it and you need to share it, because again, that social proof from someone else far greater than yours, and it's just the right thing to do. I mean, it's just polite. Holy cow. And so I want to just encourage folks, right? Well, that's a fundamental conversation piece for me, right? If someone says nice things, I'm going to say thank you. I want to encourage you, bring that back online, right? And it's okay to share it and tag, hey, at Patty Farmer, thank you so much for the nice words that you said. Really simple, because then A, your followers get to see the nice thing Patty said, and B, then Patty feels loved because then I mentioned her and she sees that. So I want to encourage you folks, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to brag about myself. Well, do good work. And when people do brag about you, make sure you share it.
I know it is something pretty basic. I think that sometimes, actually more times than people would want to admit, is they get caught up in social media versus social networking, and I'm always trying to explain to people, yes, media is kind of broadcasting out, but it is social networking. And you really need to think about, what would I do if this was in person, right? And really translate that over. And that's how you move your relationships online, offline, and offline, online, right? So I think that sometimes they just don't get it. What would you say is the number one social media etiquette mistake that people make?
Well, I think they personalize instead of being personal, right? So they just say, dear Patty, and then there's nothing about you in the message, right? I got one of these the other day, actually. I got a speaker, because I'm a VP of sales training, in addition to speaking, training, and coaching and all of that stuff. When you do a search on LinkedIn, it comes as, I show up as a VP of sales, because the training ends up getting truncated. I don't know why LinkedIn does that. I don't care why LinkedIn does that, but it's true. So what I got is, I got some speaker who works with salespeople who had his assistant go out and blast the same message to every VP of sales out there. I don't hire speakers, but this is what he sends, right? Hey, this is Johnny, and I'm replacing Johnny's name, as Johnny, right? Just making up a name so as to protect the guilty here. Hey, this is Johnny, Sally's assistant, and here's some spammy, crappy message. You should hire me as a speaker. Well, it was personalized. It said, Dear Phil, but that's not enough. You got to be personal. So take the time, look at people's profiles, see, oh, he's a VP of sales training, but he's also a speaker. By the way, he also knows sales, and I don't hire people like that. So if you'd have paid attention, if you'd been personal, instead an approach might have been, hey, Phil, I see that you're VP of sales training. Do you ever augment the training that you deliver with an outside speaker? Because I have experience augmenting sales training, and here's how, right? So now I was personal. And then in the PS, I might add, and PS, Phil, I love your orange glasses. They're really fun. Nobody wears orange glasses like you do. And I'd be like, oh, wow. Now he was personal instead of personalizing. And I think that's the biggest miss, the biggest social media etiquette faux pas that so many people make. And it's a killer for sales, because people get way too many messages that look exactly like what somebody would send everybody else, just with their name replaced.
I love that. several months back, you were offering a LinkedIn for Speaker course, and I took that course, and I have to tell you, hands down, the best money I ever spent. And I think I'm really good at social. So I have to tell you, you taught some super key things there that have actually helped me to get more speaking gigs and better ones too, and make more money. But not only that, but one of the things that you said that really honestly, again, should be pretty obvious, but has really helped is when you were saying in the headlines, right? In our headlines, that we should put something personal. And I remember at that time, I don't know if it still does, yours said pinball wizard, right? And I remember thinking, why does Phil put that there? But when you explained it in the course, it made so much sense to me. And since then, you know, there's things that I am known for. Everybody knows about me, right? I added those, and all of a sudden, people who are looking, you're right, it differentiates you from everybody else that does what you do and makes it a little bit more personal. So I have to tell you, that teeny little tip among all the gold nuggets that you gave really was a game changer, and not just in how people reacted to me, but in how I look for other people now too when I'm looking. When I see that now, it's like, oh, and I love that, right? And so I think that's really good. So I love that. Are you still doing that course? I think that you're still doing something like it. Tell us about that.
Sure. So the LinkedIn Sales Blueprint I'm offering for sales and consultants and thought leaders and trainers, for sure, as a recorded course. I don't have time anymore to do it live, but I absolutely have it as a recorded course. And it's, 5 sessions. To your point, right? There's lots of little things, little nuances that will help grow business, right? That one tip that you have there, change your headline to be something personal, is so important, because if we think about it, right? Okay, how many of us are speakers, right? We raised our hand. Just putting that you're a keynote speaker doesn't help you stand out. You look like every other one. So give me something personal. Remember, orange glasses, pinball wizard, right? Whatever it is that's personal about you, offer that, because that's what people are going to remember. Not, oh, Phil's a keynote speaker. No, nobody cares, because that's the same as everybody else. I'm not saying you don't have that as a position, but as my first thing, as my headline, absolutely super important to do.
I love it. See, now that's a key takeaway, everybody. I hope that was a writer downer for you for sure. So let's go back a little bit further and kind of talk about your journey a little bit. And I remember one of the things that I loved when we interviewed you for the magazine was that you came from this teeny little town. It was actually our headline, that you came from this town of some small number to this many connections now. And it was like super fabulous. And I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I was raised in Las Vegas, so of course it was really big, right? But with that said, I have to say that your story really inspired me and said a lot about you. So let's go back a little bit and tell your story a little.
Sure. So I grew up in a town of 996 people, a little town called Crivets, Wisconsin, where growing up, we didn't even have a stoplight. There was a feed mill. There was, there was no McDonald's, no any fast food, super small. I graduated from a class of 50 people. And I really thought, I was even told in 8th grade that I should just take easy math, because frankly, I was going to end up working at the gas station my whole life. My mom was a waitress making $1.61 an hour. My dad was a dairy farmer, never filed a positive tax return in his life. And my stepdad worked at basically like a homeowner's bargain outlet, only like Home Depot, like taken 3 levels down with all the rejects and all the things that are no good. So that's where I grew up. And from there, I went in the Navy. I delivered email by hand. I thought the internet was totally fake. And I had none of the traditional advantages of anybody. I mean, 996 people, many of which are service professionals that have never moved more than 50 miles away. Although I would say 64 miles away, because some move all the way to Green Bay, Wisconsin, or they moved to Iron Mountain, Michigan. So about 60, 70 miles, that's their sphere of influence. But I learned early on there, both from my grandmother as well as my dad and my mom, that how important people were. And so when I went in the Navy, I ignored that advice. I didn't listen to them. And I probably made more enemies than friends, if I'm going to be totally honest. I'm surprised anybody that I was stationed with in the Navy still talks to me. They do. I've still got couple friends from there. So I did that. I went to college to be a teacher. That was fun. And I learned the internet was becoming real. We were at 56K. I had a computer in my office. I sweet talked myself into being president of an association. So I had a computer, and Patty, I had a printer.
Ooh.
That was a pretty big deal. Yeah, I had a Hewlett-Packard 822C that the cartridges cost me $130 that the school paid for me to make copies. It was pretty cool. Yeah, but then the internet started becoming real. And that was the game changer for me. Like my life changed when the internet started becoming real. I had a website dedicated to the 80s, the 1980s, right? I was the 80s guy. That was what I thought I wanted to be. I started 80scafe.com, which I don't own, sadly. Somebody else picked it up. I'm sure they're doing good work with it, right? But so I did that. And then I realized that this internet thing was pretty legit. So I got a job selling DSL. And I started realizing that relationships were what mattered. And I started really deeply connecting. And from there, like life has really changed.
That's awesome. I know that has been the way that I have built my business from the get-go, like networking, building relationships, and collaboration. Like those have been my key things. So Phil, let me ask you a question. So if somebody was a brand new entrepreneur, business owner, maybe they transitioned out of corporate, right? And they're just thinking, okay, so I got to start getting seen, right? Get some visibility. What would be some key things you would tell them that they should be doing first?
Well, first, add as much value as you can before you try to add any volume. That's the first really most important thing. You have to add value. And how do you add value? Well, you do like you're doing here, Patty, right? You might start a podcast. You might do an interview series via text. You might take other people's articles and add comments to them. You might not even have a website yet, but you should absolutely add value before you add volume. That's the first thing that's really important. The next thing is you should get your profile in shape. And your profile is everything about you online. It should be consistent headshot, consistent text. It should look and sound like you. And I would say, if you had the money, absolutely hire a writer to help you with that, because it's great that you write about you, but it often feels like bragging. So if you give it up to somebody else and they say good things, you can just copy and paste it and not feel guilty about it. You don't feel like you're bragging. So that's the second thing I do. And then the third thing I do, I added value, right? I call it getting dressed before you get busy, right? That's really important. And then from there, then I would, again, just go out and try to help as many people as I could in what I want to do. And eventually I'd get to a point where I could charge for it. Now I say that you don't have to do anything for free at first. You might charge a low fee, but I'll tell you right now, I would rather give stuff away than charge a fee that is below what I feel I'm worth. Because mentally, it's important to know what you're worth and to get what you're worth. So it's easier to give it away because then I can still mentally say, yeah, I'm still worth X amount of dollars, as opposed to, man, that person, they offered me this. Not to mention when they do it at a reduced rate, when they recommend you, they can say, well, Phil only charged me $10 an hour. Well, I don't want to do work for $10 an hour, right? I'd rather do it free and say, you know what, because you're a friend of Patty's, because of whatever insert reason here, and always have a reason, always invoice, always let them know that you're waiving your fee. Always let them know why, because it's never the same, right? I might give you a discount because you're my friend, because you're left-handed, because you're tall, because you're short, because you're skinny, because you're fat, whatever I decide, up to me. So that way, when somebody else comes back and says, we gave to them, I can honestly stand in integrity and say, this is why. So then, and only then, once you have a bit of an audience, then you start making some offers. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not making any money up front, right? I want to be really clear. You can still add value, but as you're building this online presence, right, some of that stuff online might be all for case studies and for testimonials and for things to know what works and to see which audience it resonates with, because most of us have 2 or 3 natural audiences and 2 or 3 adjacent audiences that we could do business with. So it's important to do that. And then the last thing, because there's a lot more, but the last thing I'll share today is to embrace your weirdness, right? You got to embrace what's different about you, and you have to not just talk about it, but really embrace it. And that takes time. That takes a long time. My buddy Steve Farber years ago, when I asked him how to be a great speaker, he said, Gerbyshak, I got 3 words, be more you. That was it, changed my life. But then he gave me the 3 final words that really have resonated and that I do yet today. And that's practice, practice, practice. Be you often as you can. And you'll find out that way you don't have to feel forced, because you're just really comfortable then in your own skin. Because the first time you do, you're like, well, nobody likes me. Nobody commented. Nobody shared. Oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? Well, nothing. Nobody knows you yet, man. You're in a closet. That's okay, right? So be you more often.
I think the add on to that too, that I'd like to say is, I know that when I first stepped out into that, one of the things that I couldn't figure out was that I was hearing all the time, oh my gosh, Patty, you're so brilliant, or oh my gosh, this, and oh my gosh, that. But then I noticed that they weren't always hiring me. And then when I started speaking, I realized that when I would ask if anybody had any questions, very rarely did anybody ever have any questions. And I was thinking, well, if everybody thinks I'm so brilliant, why is nobody asking me any questions? And it took me a little while for me to figure out that sometimes you can give too much information. You can overwhelm them. They weren't asking questions because I already gave them so much already that they just didn't have any more questions or capacity for any more information. So I really had to learn how to temper that information as well, and realize that when you serve, not sell, it actually allows you to be able to do that. And I believe you should give away some of your best stuff, right? That's really what really brings people to you too. So I think that it's kind of a skill that you kind of learn along the way, right? And I think for me, it took me a little bit longer than I think it should have looking back. But I mean, I think that's how it is. So with that said, what's the lesson that took you the longest to learn?
Well, the one about embracing who I really am was probably the hardest one. And I still have days where that's really hard. What I mean by that is understanding that it doesn't really matter what everybody thinks about me. It does only matter, does that resonate with my audience, with who I want to talk with most? So it's okay to be yourself. Being more you is super important, unless you're a jerko, in which case, you should probably look at that again. That doesn't give you permission to just be mean to people. Just to be super clear, that's not what I'm talking about. But I mean, just letting your personality shine through and your energy shine through and your colorfulness or lack of colorfulness shine through. That was the hardest one for me because, often we look to people before us as role models instead of guides. And I was guilty of this, right? I looked at John Maxwell. I looked at Marcus Buckingham. I looked at Tim Sanders, right? I looked at Farber and I'm like, wow, I want to be like them. So, and then they couldn't be four more different people. Okay, so John Maxwell is a preacher from Skyline Church in San Diego. I'm not a preacher. Okay, so that's out. Marcus Buckingham is this drop-dead gorgeous Englishman. Well, I'm not that, right? And I don't wear my shirt unbuttoned and I don't show off my chest in my program. So he's out, right? So Tim Sanders in Love is the Killer app dressed up like a beatnik from the 60s and 70s, right? He had a leather jacket. He had cool shades on. Okay, well, I'm not Tim Sanders, right? And Farber, well, Farber's just Farber, right? He's got kind of his own jam going there. I couldn't be Farber either. So I got disappointed with myself. And it was like, oh, I'm not those guys. So this doesn't work. When I finally realized that I have to be more me, and that's all I can be, right? I'm the best Phil Gerbyshak on the planet. Once I finally embraced that wholly, Patty, I really, really got it. But it was really hard. I mean, like I said, there are still days where I just want to fit in and I just want to blend in. And then I realize, like, every time I say that, I'm like, you just want to be like everybody else? Really, dude? Is that really what you're saying?
I don't think you could blend in. I think you're a standout kind of guy, Phil.
Well, that's the thing, right? And thank you for saying that. But that's the thing. I think we all have that opportunity to be standout guys and gals. And we just miss it because we're thinking, we compare ourselves. So that comparison trap and being more me, those are the big lessons that I learned that I'm still, I still have days where I'm learning them.
And I think sometimes you have to fine tune it too, because I remember when I was first learning that, I thought, well, what is that about me, right? Like, what is that? And so, people who know me know that I love shoes, right? Everybody talk. I mean, at least a week doesn't go by that people aren't sending me shoes, right? Like pictures of shoes and saying, oh, I thought of you when I saw this. But in the beginning, that's how I just, like they got to know that about me. But here's what would happen. Sometimes when I would post about it, I would get haters, right? That would say, oh, how many pairs of shoes do you need? And blah, 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 right? I got a lot of that. And so for a while there, I stopped doing it. But then all of a sudden I realized that it was a shift, and I started sharing, why do I love shoes? And how this was a part of rewarding myself. And, when I would set goals for myself and it was all about the goal. And when I did, this is what I did. People really resonated with that. So sometimes there's something about us and just saying the thing, you kind of like have to be you and kind of explain like maybe sometimes why you do it. And that was the change for being unapologetically me, but also realizing that there's always a why behind most of the things that we do. And sometimes being vulnerable and authentic and sharing the why is a good thing too, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely. That context really matters, right? So when I tell you, so ready for this, Patty? I bet you don't even know. I'm colorblind.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't know?
Yep, I'm colorblind. So I'm not completely colorblind. I want to be really clear. I'm not completely colorblind, but I recognize that I'm this much colorblind, like a little itty bit colorblind. When my junior year of high school, my best friend's sister was sitting on my lap. We were watching fireworks, and I was calling out the wrong colors to fireworks. And I didn't think about it. That was July 4th. 2 weeks later, I joined the Navy, or attempted to join the Navy at the time, and I found out I'm red, green, and shade blind. In the sky, often light purple looks like white to me. Often dark purple looks like navy to me. And black often looks like navy, and navy looks like black. And sometimes green looks like gray or brown to me. Like my pants today, actually, I know they almost match my glasses because I asked someone, not because I can see it. I cannot tell you. In fact, if I'm looking at them right now, they look totally brown to me. But I know because people have told me they're actually olive green. So when I wear my glasses, it's because I want to share color that I have been deprived of. I am color deficient, right? So it's important to me to be able to share that. And as a sales trainer, as a sales speaker, I want to get people's attention right from the jump. And one of the ways to do that is my glasses, and usually my socks and my cufflinks will match the same color as my glasses, and it gets people's attention so that right from the get-go, they're paying attention. So those two reasons, that's why I have 15 pairs of glasses.
So was the orange accidental? You thought it was another color, or did you know it was orange right up front?
Well, I knew it was orange, but the first orange pair was accidental because I liked it. I thought it was cool, but it wasn't my favorite one. In fact, green was. These green ones that I'm wearing today were actually, I thought was going to be my color. And then I did a program and the green completely washed out because they had an old bulb. So my slides looked totally washed out and totally terrible. And I'm like, why is that? Well, it's because they're green. And green is one of the first colors to get depleted in a projector bulb. That at least in my experience, and that might not be scientifically true. So if anybody's listening to this and says you're full of crap, well, this is my experience, right? So I saw that. I'm like, okay, what's my second favorite color? Well, my second favorite color was orange. So I had a pair of orange glasses. I had an orange shirt, and I put them on. And the feedback that I got was, wow, dude, that's really bright, but they paid attention. So for me, it sort of was accidental, and now it's completely on purpose. Like, my Apple Watch band is orange. My phone case is orange. If I showed you, even the thing that my laptop sits on top of, the holder is orange as well. I don't have an orange vehicle yet, but even today, right, I got an orange bag. So I am orange, orange, orange. That's my whole thing. I love orange.
Orange, you're happy it's working, but
you got me. I am.
I just couldn't resist. But the reality really is I do love that. And I love that picture of you where you have the phone in your picture, and it is too. And I was like, oh, now that was really catchy. That was some good branding, right? So I really do love it. So Phil, let's kind of go back to LinkedIn a little bit. So, do you feel like, I get asked this a lot, so I'm sure you do too. Do you have to have the paid version? Like, kind of like talk about that. Because people ask me all the time, do I have to have the paid version to make sales, or can I only connect on the free one? And so I get a lot of questions about that. This is really kind of your area of expertise. So kind of give us your perspective. I always love getting everybody else's perspective.
Sure. So I don't think you have to have the paid version. I want to be clear. I don't think you have to have it. Here's the thing though. If you're running up against the commercial search limit, you should get the paid version. If you're doing a ton of prospecting, you should get the paid version. And I would tell you to skip premium and go right to Sales Navigator, because I'm going to give you some ROI here. It's $80 a month for Navigator. That's the top price. $80 a month times 12 months is $960. Let's round that up to $1,000. If it saves you 2 hours a time a month, 2 hours a time a month, that's 24 hours a year, 24 hours a year, divided into 1,000. Let's shrink that down to 20 hours, because maybe we take December and January off. So that's $50 an hour. If your time is billed at more than $50 an hour, you should get the paid version of LinkedIn. Now, that being said, if you don't know what you're doing, it's really hard to use Sales Navigator because it's very different. And the differences that are there are not things that are immediately recognizable. Like, one of the big differences is the fact that you can tag. So I can tag, right? Basically, I can use LinkedIn Sales Navigator like a CRM, so that now I can bucket people so that I get different views, almost like a Twitter list. So it's different, but you have to know what you're doing, and you have to do that, right? So my recommendation is, whether you hire me as a coach or you hire someone else as a coach, spend a couple hours with someone who really knows Navigator, and then, sign up for a free month, invest in a free month and 2 hours of coaching with someone, and then really develop your strategy and go after it for 30 days. That free month, go after it. If you've already gotten your free month, pay for the $80. Don't sign up for a whole year yet. but then go after it. And I would tell you, go after it for 30 days or 90 days for one target audience. Make sure your profile's in shape for one target audience. Go after it for 90 days, really hard. Position yourself as the expert for that audience and go after it. And if you don't make your $1,000 back for the year and that $500 to $1,000 you're paying someone for coaching, then either your coach sucks or you have the wrong audience. Either way, you got good research. And for $1,500, you just did a year's worth of market research that says either A, I hired the wrong coach, I'll never hire that person again. They're not worth my time. I invested $1,500 to know who's not my person. Or B, I learned who not my audience is. Either of which are super duper valuable things to know.
That was some good advice and some really great marketing math there. So I really love that marketing math. I think that works really well. So what do you think of the LinkedIn broadcasting application now that where people can apply to do that?
Yeah, well, I love the fact that there's an application process for LinkedIn Live. I hope there's never just everybody gets LinkedIn Live. Not that everybody can't get it, but that everybody doesn't get it by default. Because what I don't want is I don't want somebody jumping on and navel gazing. Like, hi, I'm really smart. You should really talk to me. And here's my crappy product or service. Here's a live video that goes 30 minutes and I suck, right? I'm boring. I don't add value, but I'm going to talk because LinkedIn says I got 15 minutes to say whatever I want. So I'm just going to read from the phone book. I don't ever want to see that. But so I think the application process is fantastic. I love that people have to apply. I would tell you, right, if you're thinking about LinkedIn Live, think about what is your unique take on sales, on marketing, on whatever your topic is, on leadership. What is your unique take? How can you spin that into a show that runs for more than one episode? Not just how can I develop a standalone episode, a standalone video, but how can I spin this? How can I craft this into something that is more long lasting? So think about, again, this is where you need a marketing help. If you're not a marketer and you don't understand how to get a marketing strategy, you need one. So get someone, right? I mean, this is not, I really think, the days of, oh, yay, so you've got video, therefore you stand out. That's not true anymore. You have to find your unique angle, right? You got to find what's your weird. And that's really important. So if you do that, and now I've got my unique point of view, and I go after that, and I do this for 10, 12, 25 episodes, well, now it's way more interesting, right? So that could be your point of view, could be your audience, right? There's lots of different ways to slice and dice the uniqueness, but find something different about you than everybody else. Don't just do what everybody does. That's where I think LinkedIn Live, the fact that they make you apply gives you a speed bump that says, whoop, I got to think about why I'm going to do this, not just because it's on the platform, which I think actually is going to lead to greater success.
I absolutely believe that too. And I think that's a great perspective that you did. Because, in the beginning, when people were early adopters of Facebook Live, now like they're there all the time. And I find I don't watch as many of them as I used to before. So I am really looking forward to the LinkedIn Lives as well. So you're everywhere, right? Everybody's like, oh, you have your visibility down, you're everywhere. I'm sure that's what everybody tells you. So here's what I really want to know. How much time do you really spend on social media?
Yeah, that's a really fair question. I probably spend at least an hour a day. If I'm doing video or doing an interview or something, probably 2 hours a day on it. So if I'm doing a video, right, usually I block an hour for that, whether I'm getting interviewed or doing the interview. So, and then an hour for other stuff. And then I would say another 10 minutes of just checking in, right? So just checking on stuff, seeing what's going on, seeing if there's time. So for instance, I start my day, every day, my kind of social media day, I start with gratitude. That's the first thing I do. And I post that to Facebook and I engage people in the conversation in my personal profile. And then if I have something of value to share with my sales audience, right? Because those are my friends and people that have met in person or that I want to know in person. So like you and I haven't met in person yet, but we're close enough that we might as well have, right? And that's how I try to behave on Facebook. So that's my Facebook network. And so I spend a lot of time there. If I have value to add about sales, about leadership, about marketing, I'm going to go to LinkedIn and share that. And then a little bit of Twitter, right? Just a little bit in between stuff, 30, 60 seconds, 90 seconds here, just to pay attention and see like who's talking about me. And then I might sprinkle in a little bit of value throughout the day. I typically don't schedule unless I come across like 5 or 10 articles in a row that are interesting. And the reason I schedule them is because if I just puked out 10 tweets in a row, you'd be like, shut up, dude, that's too much. So instead, I'll schedule them so that at most maybe 3 links, 4 links go out a day to articles that I found of interest. Yeah, so about, I would say, 1 to 2 hours a day. And then on the weekends, some cleanup, right? I'm going to spend a little more time on Facebook. I'm going to make sure that if it's people's birthday, I'm going to wish them a happy birthday as well. I try to do that. Facebook has decided to hide those birthdays from me on the mobile side, which is really annoying. So that means I have to go to the desktop and see them. But yeah, so birthdays, adding value, my gratitude for the day, and then connecting people. Those are probably my 4 big things that I do a day in about an hour or 2 a day.
Oh, that's pretty good. I know that people ask me that question too. And I said, about 45 minutes to an hour in the morning, right? That's when I do things. I set things up, clean things up too, like that. Again, like you, during the day, I'm checking on my phone and answering, engaging, having conversation, replying to people and recognizing the things that people say. So I think that is really, really important. But I don't think if people do it right, they don't necessarily have to be on social media all day long. Like they think they do, but the reality is they really don't need to be there. I pick times, and I think one of the things that I really learned early on is a lot of times what people do is you'll post something and then you'll get this engagement and like 15 people will respond. And then what people do is they go in there and answer all 15 people at one time and, thank you for, whatever the case may be. And every post you have only has a certain amount of a time limit. One of the things that I learned early on is if you have 15 people, you go check, and 15 people have left a comment, if you answer 5 of them, it shows up more. And then an hour later, if you go in and answer 5 more, it shows up. So not doing them all at one time actually helps you. That's why I like going in throughout the whole day and doing it, because this way it actually extends the time. So I think there's a lot of little things that people can do instead of just getting on there once a day, putting everything out, and they forget about social media until the next day, right? So there's a little bit more to it, but it should be part of your overall marketing strategy and not just, jump on, jump off kind of thing.
Yep.
So you spend the most amount of time on LinkedIn. What other ones you just said Facebook and Twitter. So do you not do Instagram or Pinterest at all?
I play with Instagram. I don't know that I'm very active on it. I don't use the full 30 hashtags. In fact, seldom do I use hashtags. I like Instagram stories. Now that Instagram has decided to hide likes and how many people have liked it, I don't even care. Like, I'm trying to engage the audience that I have. And I know that to get new audience, I have to go and have more conversations. So I don't really worry so much about what I post. It's more about the comments that I share. So I do go look for people. I'll take a few minutes. I guess I've got a couple quote boards on Instagram, and I'm using it personally for or Pinterest. I've got quote boards on Pinterest, and I'll try to, I've got a beach board because next year in 2020, I'll be living on the beach. So by the time folks listen to this for the 4th or 5th time, I'll be living on Madeira Beach. So I'm building my beach house, kind of one piece of furniture, one sign on the wall at a time. So that's what I use Pinterest for. I can't figure out how the heck to get logged into TikTok. It appears that both of my typical usernames, Phil Gerb and Phil Gerbyshak, are gone. So I might have to use like LISBP for my LinkedIn sales blueprint or something else to be on TikTok, because frankly, again, my 2 typical usernames, I bet I took them, but I can't get the password reset. So that's not helpful. Yeah. I would say LinkedIn, in order of usage, LinkedIn, top 3, then Facebook, then a little bit of Twitter, and a little bit of Instagram.
I love it. I do have to tell you though, for me, I love Twitter. Spend a lot more time on LinkedIn. I've always spent time on LinkedIn, but I do have to say that I've probably maybe not quite doubled my time, but at least 1.5 times since I took your course. I have definitely done that. I have a super renewed interest now in Pinterest. It has actually been really doing well for me, but I do think that really kind of all depends. You don't have to be everywhere, right? But where's your audience? So let me ask this question. What do you love most about your business today?
Well, I love that I get to choose who I work with. I don't have to work with everyone. When I was starting out, I didn't exactly know who my target was. So I took on maybe some clients that I wouldn't take on anymore. So I really love that about them. I love that I know that I can actually help the people that I serve, starting out. I think I can, or I might be able to I think I can, to I know I can, to now, there's no question in my mind. If somebody does the work that I teach, it absolutely will work. And I want to weed that out. I don't want to work with people who aren't going to do the work. because frankly, most of my business is referral business now. It's from people who've worked with me who love the results that they got from working with me. And so that's super important. And that also means like people who just, I don't worry about SEO anymore, because I don't want some random person to find me because they found that my LinkedIn Sales Blueprint course is, XYZ price. And boy, that's super cheap. That's not what I want. I don't want anybody like that. They can buy my product, I guess, but I'd rather they not, because they're not going to do the work. They're just going to sit on the product. I mean, it's nice to get money, but it's better to make a difference.
Oh, I love that. I think that is really wonderful. I actually believe lead with contribution, compensation will follow. I totally understand that. How do people connect with you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. If you can spell my last name, you can find me. It's Gerbyshak. You can find me there. And if you search for Phil Gerb, Philgerb, pretty much on every platform except for TikTok, that's my username. So you can find me there. And then, if you go to philgerbyshak.com, you can certainly, put in, you'll see my phone number, my email address are on my website. Happy to do that. And then I'm a VP of sales training at Vector Solutions in Tampa. So if you ever get to Tampa, let me know. I'd love to grab a cup of coffee or have lunch or something with you. We're in the corner of West Shore and Kennedy in Tampa, which if you're not in Tampa doesn't mean anything to you. But if you are in Tampa, right where that is. It's right by West Shore Mall. And I'd love to hear from folks.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. So we're at the portion of the show now, which I really love. It's one of my favorites. And this is sort of my version of social karaoke. So this is the open mic portion where I am going to turn the mic over to you. And this is where our guests get to share their secret sauce, ninja strategy, most valuable thing they can share with the audience. And I'm going to turn it over to you now, Phil. So take it away.
Thank you, Patty. So I'm going to teach you about the way that you need to sell. The way you need to sell is the 5 P's of sales. We're going to start in the middle, and then I promise I'll cover off on the ends. So the first P is you have to prepare. You have to prepare your messaging, prepare who you're going to talk to, prepare what value you're going to give them, and get that ready. Get that next to you, get that queued up, have that at the ready. Then you got to practice. You got to practice having conversations. Maybe you talk to Zoom, you practice those conversations, you practice them as phone calls. You record them. If you use the Zoom webinar product or you store Zoom in the cloud, it automatically transcribes. If not, you can just download otter.ai. That's my secret weapon for all my sales folks, everybody that I coach, everybody that I train. Otter.ai allows you to record and then rehear that as well as see the transcript. So that's your practice piece. And then you got to produce, like actually do the work, right? Don't get paralyzed by the fact that, oh my gosh, I'm not ready enough. If you prepared and you practiced, you can produce. But there's 2 more P's that are really important. And that's on the front end, you have to prioritize. So write down everything that you have to do in the day, and the most valuable things, those things that move your needle, that are the best revenue producing activities, need to go on your calendar. In addition to that, you got to put prepare time, you got to put review time on your calendar, really important. And then one other thing that goes on your calendar, and that is random tasks. So what happens is those random tasks take us off track. They really paralyze us because we're like, oh, I got to do this. Stop. If instead you put an hour on your calendar every day for random tasks, and every time you get a random task, you just know, I don't have to do that now. I'm going to do that at 3:00 at random task time. You're going to be way better. Then the last P is the one that so many people miss, and that is perfect. Not perfect, perfect. Improve, get better, do more, continue that. So if we put that together, first we prioritize what are the most important things. They're on my calendar. I'm going to do those every single day. Then I'm going to prepare my list, prepare my messaging, prepare who I'm going to talk to, all of that. Then I practice. I get good. I practice. Then I practiced enough. Then I produce. I make the calls. I do the presentations. I write the blog posts. I do the podcast, whatever the production is. And then last but not least, then I perfect. I'm always improving. And it's a beautiful, virtuous cycle. The more you do that, the more successful you're going to be.
That is phenomenal. Another P word. That is phenomenal. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your zone of genius. And really, I always love talking with you because I always learn something every single time, which is really fabulous. One more time, can you give them the website for your course?
Sure. It's lisbp.com. That's for LinkedIn Sales Blueprint. So lisbp.com will take you to the course. If you have questions about LinkedIn, it'll happen there.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. And everyone, if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Remember, sharing is caring. I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. Thank you again, Phil.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.